Talk a little bit about where you developed the story from.
I started writing it at the start of film school in 2004. And I had this flu and I had this fever, and I was sort of obsessing over the physicality of my illness and the fact that I had something in my body and in my cells that had come from someone else's body, and how that's kind of an intimate thing in a weird way, if you think about it that way. And I thought, a celebrity-obsessed fan might want the disease, the cold from some celebrity that they were obsessed with as a way of feeling physically connected to them. So, it sort of developed from there.
Yeah, I love that first scene where Caleb is, talking to the guy and kind of being like, if she kissed you right here, and it is very like intense kind of intimate connection between two people, and I love the way that gets explored. It's very interesting.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about the casting? Because Caleb's fantastic in this, and I remember him being in X-Men First Class. When did he come on board for you, and how did you work with him on set?
Well, he came. We were in pre-production actually, and we were kind of looking around at different actors that might be interesting to play Sid, and. We sort of saw. I'd seen him in X-Men, but X-Men's such an effects movie that I wasn't thinking about it, I guess, for casting. And then we saw a reel of his, a bunch of clips from films he'd been in and some auditions he did for some other films. And I think he's a really exciting actor. He has that kind of hard to articulate great quality that some actors have, where you just want to watch them. And he's a nuanced physical actor, which we needed because of the disease, and he needed to be interesting to watch because he's in almost every shot really. We just all got really worked up about him, and then he came to Toronto and he was into it. I was lucky to have him.
Why did you show the tulip with the virus in it?
It just seemed like an interesting connection, because that's true. The tulip. Any tulip that doesn't have solid colored petals and has stripes is pretty, because it has a viral infection. And actually those tulips kind of destroyed Holland's economy at one point, because they had these incredible, they're perennial flowers, and the ones with these viruses would grow and they'd have these petals, and people would get the Dutch masters to paint portraits of their flowers. And then it became one of the early examples of an economic bubble. Like they became so enamored with these flowers, they started trading entire estates for particular tulips, and their entire economy became like tulip based. I guess, just the idea of virus as a commodity, an early actual example of it, was interesting to me.
Were there any specific films that you took from, as far as the visual look of this film? Any films that influenced it?
Were there any films that influenced it? Nothing. We weren't deliberately trying to kind of mimic films or take from films. We all got pretty excited about Dogtooth when we were in pre-production, and Alps, his next film. And so I think that influenced it to a certain extent. But I think we sort of went into it thinking it was going to be a bit more naturalistic or something, and then we were all kind of digging the Romanian new wave as well at the time, and then once we started shooting, it just kind of took on a life of its own, and we decided to run with what was coming out in the most interesting way.
I want to specifically ask how you came across the color palette. I noticed there was kind of sort of shift into a whole lot of white.
Yeah, I started talking to my production designer, Arv Graywall, about it, and he said, "Oh, you want a Symphony of White? Okay, I get it." And part of the film, I guess thematically, one of the things that I was going for in the film was that disconnect between celebrities as these, purely conceptual humans, kind of like media constructs or cultural constructs that are that exist in the media but are kind of fictions in that way, and then the human, the disconnect between that and the human being, who's an animal who's living and decaying and dying beneath that, and in a way unrelated to the media character. So in the production design, we wanted to mimic that a bit. So there are long stretches of it that are extremely sterile and white and sort of inhuman, and then there are sort of more grimy areas, you know, the butcher shop and the Levines and some of that fetishistic macro body shot stuff. And then they kind of collide at the end. So
Please help me give Brandon a round of applause. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
yeah, thanks so much for coming.